All right, we're going to just hit our record button. So we have this for those who aren't able to join us today. Thanks so much for joining us for today's Lunch and Learn with the City Forest Officer session. We're going to do some quick housekeeping and then dive straight into our special guests who are joining us today from the Climate Action Corps Fellows Program. So again, these sessions are intended to share some project updates, celebrate, and share some urban forestry best practices. Today, our pillars of urban forest management: planting, maintenance, preservation, and engagement. Our guiding principles were rooted in science, we're utilizing key partnerships, and we're encouraging that understanding and investment in those 4 pillars. Today, much like our event earlier this month, we're going to be highlighting that key partnership and the way that we're utilizing partnerships to advance our urban forest growth in the area. As we're letting people come in and settle in, I am going to do a quick tree moment. We're going to talk about 2 quick species. One, these are 2 trees that are in bloom. I'm going for walks in the morning. I'm thinking about you guys, and I'm wondering if you know the names of these trees. So we're gonna just look at them real quick. We have Handranthus heptaphyllus, pink trumpet tree, and I'll put these resources in the chat when I'm done talking. You can learn more about these tree species by going to the Select Tree website, and you can find some near you in our parks or streets through our city inventory. You can search for a species and see if there's any nearby, so you can go see these trees that are in bloom. The second tree is the Papyrus Caloriana. It's not a tree that I'm going to be encouraging us to plant much in the future because it looks spectacular this time of the year when it's flowering, but then it deals with fire blight the rest of the year, and so it doesn't look super pretty. It's not one of my favorites, but it is gorgeous this time of year. So if you see them out and about, now you know what they are. Now you know a place where you can look them up. So that being said, a fun tree fact for you all. We are super excited to have the California Volunteers Office of the Governor join us today to share a bit about this California Climate Action Corps Fellows Program, and then get to hear, we know that there's a number of Climate Corps Fellows in the region, not just with our partner at City Plants, but we have a couple of the Climate Corps Action Fellows that are with City Plants that are going to just be introducing themselves and sharing a brief tidbit of the project they're working on. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing screen and I'm going to pass it over to Kif, who has generously given up his lunchtime to share a little bit about the California Climate Action Corps program. And you are on mute. So if you just unmute, we're good to go.
Everything was moving so smoothly until I joined the party. Thank you so much, Rachel, for having us here. And I'm going to keep my comments very brief because I really want to turn it over to our fellows to talk about what they are doing. They're really the heart of the program. So my name is Kif Scheur. I'm the director of this new California Climate Action Corps, which is an initiative of California Volunteers, which is the state service commission. Our mission is to generally foster service and volunteerism. We are the implementer of AmeriCorps programs all over the state, and there's about 4,000 AmeriCorps members serving in California at any one moment. And we do some other things. This is a larger umbrella program that's ideally intended to help foster interest, engagement, and action around climate beyond just AmeriCorps placements, but through communities at large. So I'll give you a quick overview and tell you a little bit about what we're doing. The guiding principles of this program are 3 elements of the Newsom administration's approach to a variety of issues, and particularly climate. So clearly we've been a leader on climate nationally and internationally for many, many years. And Governor Newsom has expanded on Governor Brown's legacy in some interesting ways. I think particularly adding a lot more resilience emphasis, which is certainly core to the urban greening story. There's also been an increasing recognition and integration of equity principles, the desire to make sure that we are being mindful that a lot of the impacts of climate change and impacts of a lot of issues are borne most on our frontline communities, and the people in those communities have not been a part of the conversation. So trying to bring more people in, provide more service for our frontline communities. What's really new, I think, in the Newsom administration is an ethic of service. This idea that California should be for everybody, but it also call on everybody to be part of the solutions that we're working on. And so the California Climate Action Corps is trying to marry those 3 things together: climate, equity, and service into a program that hopefully provides an opportunity for everybody to be involved. Our mission is to empower Californians to take meaningful action. We're not just stopping with the fellows or the community partners. We're asking all Californians to be involved in the fight to address climate change. The program is rooted in this idea of a pyramid of service. We believe that whether you have an hour to serve or a year to serve, there should be something that you can do on the issues you care about. And so one of the things that happens is, like when the wildfires were happening, our chief service officer, Josh Friday, is getting calls by thousands of Californians saying, what can I do? And our office should never not have an answer. We're trying to create opportunities for service wherever you are and whatever you're doing. So we identified this pyramid of service where you can have deep service, like our fellows, who are working full-time over periods of extended service through AmeriCorps typically. We're also looking at building out some school programming. And we want to see these opportunities also be on a path to public service. We also want to create more structured volunteer opportunities. And so I'll talk a little bit later about this volunteer hub we just launched recently to try and connect Californians interested in serving with the organizations who want the support. We're also going to try and engage with the business sectors who see climate action as increasingly important, but may not see volunteering and service as a part of their overall plans. And then at the bottom of the pyramid is the everybody, trying to create a widespread engagement campaign to show how taking action in your life and at home can be a form of service and can be part of the movement to address climate change. Our current focus areas for this first year, this is just our first pilot period with the fellows, and we're sort of, as we roll the program out, is to focus on urban greening, food waste recovery and diversion, and home hardening. And we chose those for a few reasons. We didn't want to be a program that was offering really sort of privileged and affluent solutions as the primary focus. So we wanted to do things that were accessible to everybody and everywhere and amenable to service. And we're going to be of value to frontline communities, because a lot of climate programming, frankly, is geared towards electric vehicles, solar panels, expensive upgrades, or behind the scene policy changes. So we're focusing on things that are a bit more visible, tactical, and accessible. Our current activities are the pilot fellowship program, which our fellows online are here. We have 62 fellows currently serving for 7.5 months in 26 sites across 5 cities mostly. We are in the process of standing up a summer program, which will be 2 months long. And I hope that this is something maybe some of you will be interested in looking at. We're going to have 236 fellows. And these will be a broader geographic range and also subject area. We're going to open the door to environmental ed and some different subjects than just the 3 focus areas, because we want to see what needs are out there. We just launched a volunteer hub, which I won't go into too much detail, but you can check out on our website. It's a place where individuals who are interested in climate action can find a somewhat curated list of volunteer opportunities that are focused on climate. And also those organizations who are doing those things can know that there'll be more of a central destination for those opportunities to be listed. So I think that is my whirlwind presentation, because I really wanted to turn it over to our fellows.
Well, thanks so much for that overview. And I think this program, I feel like, came together really quickly. And so having a chance to have you share kind of that vision and what your focus areas are. Before I hop to our other panelists, you mentioned, and I'm sorry, I don't have this number. Do you know how many total are based in LA? I know that Rachel O'Leary and I had discussed it, but I wanted to see if you had a better sense.
I believe it's 15.
Okay. So just to show that we have a snapshot, just a smaller group of the larger cohort. That's
exactly. We tried to create in these 5 cities between 10 and 15. You guys were obviously, LA is barely a city anymore, it's a country. And so as compared to Stockton and Fresno, we did give you more, but we wanted to spread out a little bit.
Of course, yeah. And we're, again, super excited for the different programs, for the folks that we're going to talk to today and the other programs that are being supported through this push. And Rachel O'Leary, the head of city plans, and I talked jokingly about the cavalry is coming. So we have this additional resource for a period of time to help us with some of our really key projects with an influx of really talented staff, essentially, for a period of time to support those programs. And I love that there's opportunities for everyone across kind of the spectrum to be involved. So with that, I warned them ahead of time that we were going to go in alphabetical order, because then I wouldn't get confused as we get into this. So Bryce, do you want to go ahead and just introduce yourself and the project that you're working on?
Absolutely. Bonjour. Bryce Nadeknikas. My name is Bryce Lewis Smith. I am a volunteer with City Plants, and I'm from Seattle, Washington. And my current project is working on the Tree Ambassador Fellows. The Tree Ambassador program. So we're going out and recruiting tree ambassadors to join City Plants to help bring in to get more people on the ground to plant trees and work within the community and hold actual conversations with the communities between City Plants and our partner organizations.
Great, and that's again an outreach strategy that we've been working on, and actually have several partners. Your component, I think there's a counterpart at KYCC that's another Climate Action Corps fellow that's working on this program, and that project is also being supported heavily by LA Department of Water and Power as we build that specific program. So you're providing support there, and I'm actually going to jump because Monica, I think your work is really related to that. If you want to go ahead and share the project that you're working on and your background, where you're coming from and in joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Rachel. So just to tie in a little bit of what Bryce is working on, I'm helping to develop content for the Tree Ambassador program, but my specific role within that is to adapt the toolkit that we're working on for the city of LA. So Angelinos can better engage with their own communities and how to care for their urban forest. And I'll be also implementing other community engagement strategies. My role within City Plants is specifically is to be their community engagement and communications fellow. So within City Plants, I help to connect Angelinos to our free tree programs and support community groups in their tree planting projects. And so more specifically on that, I'll be engaging with neighborhood councils to spread awareness about City Plants free tree programs, as well as assist in developing content for the Tree Ambassador program. So adapting that for the city on a much wider scale, so it's more accessible to Angelinos to implement those same strategies we're utilizing for the Tree Ambassador program.
Great, thank you. And I'll just note that anyone who's done work around trees in Los Angeles knows that that community engagement component, one, is really critical. It's one of the reasons, it's one of the 4 pillars that I've identified for our urban forest management, but also it's very time consuming on a city of this scale. So the additional support I know is really, really helpful. Kimberly, let's hear a little bit about what you're doing.
Thanks, Rachel. Hi, everyone. I'm Kimberly. I use pronouns she, her, and I was born and raised in Northeast Los Angeles in a neighborhood of Montecito Heights. And with City Plants, I'm working on LA's Urban Forest Management Plan, which the full plan is still a few years out, as Rachel M knows, but I am currently working to help launch the financing study to help LA understand how the city will fund the maintenance of its trees, as well as documenting best management practices that are currently used by LA's Urban Forestry Division for tree maintenance.
Yeah, and the financing study that Kimberly's supporting is one that City Plants received funding from CAL FIRE to work on, and we're really excited to have some additional support moving that project forward. And as she referenced, the Urban Forest Management Plan that we'll be working on as a city, she's helping us document some of those maintenance best practices that are existing, but we don't have in a cohesive form for that future document. And Leo or Leonardo, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Leo. I'm from Gardena, California, so right between the South Bay area and South LA. And I will be working with City Plants on the Commonwealth Nursery project, where the goal is to redevelop the Commonwealth Nursery site in Griffith Park that has existing infrastructure from when the nursery existed back in the 60s, as well as assisting along with Amanda Bashir and Carla Ramos from LA Conservation Corps, help develop the nursery, increase the stock, so that later on city plants could source their trees for their tree planting events from the nursery itself, as well as helping the nursery become a site for community members to come and become educated and learn about the benefits of trees and things as such. And also developing a workforce initiative to create a nonprofit to city job pipeline for LACC members.
Well, that's quite a few things, but again, really exciting. And I'll acknowledge the Commonwealth Project. Again, we received a donation of around 10,000 trees back in June as a result of COVID. You know, there was University of Redlands and LA County Fire Department had some trees that they had prepared for Earth Day giveaways that they couldn't give away. And again, LA Conservation Corps, Rec and Parks, City Plants, and LA Parks Foundation worked pretty quickly to talk through how to get how to take those tree adoptions, because there were some species that we really wanted. And LACC has been managing the site. So we're super excited to have, again, another person looking at that program and how we maximize its benefits and growth over the next 7.5 months or so. Wonderful. So I'm going to see what questions we have. We do have any comments on the Senate Bill 9 and Senate Bill 10 that would remove local authority over zoning and codes, and that would allow setbacks of 4 feet virtually all around structures on property lots. Where would you plant a tree? I'm not sure that I'm prepared to talk about Senate Bill 9 or 10 today, but that's the one question we have in the queue. So good to know that that's an area of interest for a future conversation, how we continue to plant trees with zoning code changes that are potentially on deck. Other questions? Because right now we don't have any. I may have a few, but I do want to allow you guys to ask, since I already have access to the fellows to a certain extent. And while I'm waiting, any of you want to share maybe one of the things that surprised you in your first couple weeks in your role?
I'll go. The one thing prior to going into this was not really being aware of the real benefits of trees and kind of the history of redlining in LA, and how the consequences of redlining disproportionately affected communities that we know now as frontline communities, and sort of seeing how those two connect, as well as like some of the studies showing how the more tree canopy you have, you significantly reduce the temperature in the surrounding area, which is very important considering living in LA and how these heat waves have been affecting people, communities in Los Angeles. But also just getting familiar with city plants and the regional partners, realizing that there are extensive efforts to tackle these issues, and it's very motivating and inspiring to be a part of. Yeah.
Thanks, Leo. Others want to share some surprises or things that you've learned in your first couple weeks?
I can share next. I think one thing that surprised me was learning about generally about choices of street trees and how they're placed, and all the different considerations that have to go into what to me just seems like a tree in a parkway. So it was, I think, really interesting for me to learn about like why we don't necessarily want to plant native trees in the parkways, and as well as just the different sizes of parkways. And yeah, it's been really fun to learn about that.
It's way more complex than anyone sometimes cares to know to do urban forestry, particularly around street trees. I've got a couple questions. One, Kif, I'll just highlight for you. I don't know that you'll have the answer handy, but if you want to, one person is asking who the representative is with LA Sanitation and the Environment, our City of LA Bureau of Sanitation. There's curiosity about what that fellow is working on, who's not with us today. And that's something we can add in the blog if we don't get to it now. And then the next question is, who can apply to host or employ Climate Corps fellows? Is it open to the government, private sector, nonprofit? How do you get fellows from this program? And you're muted. Yeah.
So I'll answer the second question. AmeriCorps programs are open to, are not open to private sector entities. We can't be doing, it's federally funded, so we can't be driving benefit to. We do sometimes partner indirectly, but so then each program like ours sets who could be hosts. In our case, it's really any public agency, any community organization, tribal communities could be hosts for fellows. So there's an application process that all the partners went through where they proposed their project, why it was a climate benefit, how it was going to connect with frontline community concerns, why they were going to be a good home for a fellow. It's one of the most critical things for us is that there's buy-in on the leadership development side. We want to make sure that our partners are thinking about the fellow experience almost equally and sometimes even more than the project experience, because frankly, if we don't give a good experience to these amazing people, they're going to go find something else to do because it's not the money that's keeping them here for sure. And so we also are about fostering public service, like what any of these 4 people are doing, Monica, Kimberly, Leo, Bryce, do these next few months is just a small part of a large, what we hope is impactful career in tackling climate change. So we want to make that a good experience. So those all go together in the application process. And I'll have to look up who the point of contact, I don't know if they're asking about what the project is with LA Sanitation or who the actual host department is.
That'd be my guess is
Yeah.
likely. I bet that just like me, people are curious about this general program and the impact it's having and the types of programs people are working on, which is why I wanted to highlight the 4 fellows that I've gotten to work with most closely thus far. And because I've just been so impressed with, again, kind of the skills that they bring to the table and their willingness to jump in with both feet into these projects. It's just again, to add the additional capacity has been really exciting. And I think that fellow experience, one of the things I look forward to addressing in the future is talking about these pipelines, into this kind of green infrastructure and climate change related work. It's nice to have these shorter term experiences to kind of see what's out there, build some connections with different organizations, and see if you like it, what's out there and get that experience. Whenever I talk to high school or college groups, I always tell them they should get as many internships as possible to kind of start weeding out the things they don't like and finding things that they do. So I'm really happy that we've got a number of organizations locally that are providing that experience and inviting new partners to the table. It's a field that's growing and is going to need to continue people joining us. So I'm looking to see if we have more questions. So California Climate Corps mentions urban greening as a key goal for them to tackle. How do you define urban? Do they consider downtown LA to be an area of interest for them or urban? And City Plans focuses exclusively on residential tree adoption that's not accessible for an urban area like downtown LA. How can this be resolved? How can urban areas access these city programs? And so I can speak to City Plants as a broader mission, and obviously their street tree program is something that is accessible to the downtown area. The private property trees, it is challenging if you don't have a yard to be able to access that specific program, but they are also doing other work in the other programs mentioned around community engagement and education around urban forestry. But we definitely have work to do to increase our tree canopy in downtown. Kif, do you want to elaborate on what urban and urban greening kind of means to the program?
Yeah, and one of the things about a program like this is that we are trying to work with and through our partners like City Plants. And so we don't actually get into a lot of the minutiae, but what those definitions mean. We're casting a pretty broad net around urban greening as a key priority area. You're asking a really interesting question that I think, City Plants is wrestling with locally in LA, and folks might be doing differently in Fresno or Stockton and around the state. But we didn't get into this categorization around urban greening. I think where it comes up principally is like, we have interest and I'd love to grow our program so we can serve more of our rural communities, but tree planting is not an issue in some of the different parts of the state. They have other issues about tree clearance. And I'm seeing, so much around wildfires trying to take dead trees out. Very different story. So characterizing the desire to create urban greening around urban heat islands and sanctuaries and other issues. That's where that focus came from for this year.
And it's good to know that that's the focus for this year and this year's programming. And it sounds like you have the opportunity to really, focus now and then continue to get feedback. I think the other reason I've talked with in this venue about urban forestry, particularly in a place like Los Angeles, where traditionally we didn't have, you know, tree canopy cover across our entire city, you know, before it had people and cars and roads. We're planting trees to address urban issues. We're looking at air quality and heat and those kinds of things. And so we're putting in an infrastructure resource to address and support quality of life for people who live here, addressing a lot of those urban issues, specifically as trees are kind of our superheroes to do that, as they provide kind of those multiple benefits. But wonderful question. I do see a couple other questions that aren't relevant to today's topic, but I'm going to go ahead and put them with the other ones as I look at our programming for the spring. I see some other areas where people would like some updates, and I'm happy to make sure that we touch on those in future sessions that are related. I think we might have time for one. Oh, here we go. How competitive do you anticipate the summer fellowship positions to be? So those 230 odd positions, how competitive do you think that that's going to be?
And I'm not sure if this person, Kelly, is referring to to be a fellow or to host a fellow. So there'll be a partner application process, and we do think it's going to be competitive, given that it's going to be more open statewide. We're working with a network of partners the way we did this program. So the Bay Area Community Resources, Local Government Commission are kind of intermediaries for these programs. LA Works, who many of you may know, is also probably going to be one of the participating organizing entities. And so there'll be a call for project proposals for hosting the fellows. For the pilot period, we had a very short window and not a lot of time to advertise it. We got twice as much demand as we had space for. So we had to make some tactical decisions about how many host partners and placements we could do. For the fellows side, I'm really curious to see for a 2-month stipended fellowship, if we get some good airtime for recruiting, it could be quite competitive. It may be modestly competitive. I really don't know. What we're typically looking for in a fellow is somebody who's got a passion for service. It's not about the skill set, particularly for the summer program. It's not about the particular educational background. It's about being involved in this kind of community service work. Maybe having a connection with the community that you're going to serve in will probably make a big difference for the summer program.
That's really helpful. And we'll remind folks this is a pilot, so you really have no data to go off of. You can't say last year we got 1,000 applications for 200 spots. You really have never done this before for this particular program. I think I'm going to cut off our questions then now so that we have time to just kind of wrap up quickly before 1. Kif, is there anything else you want to add while you're with us today?
Well, I just want to thank the 4 of you guys for serving. It's nice to see you. I barely got to say hi during the orientation, and I'm just so glad to hear what you're doing. And thank you guys for everything you do every day. And I put the website in the chat. Check it out. They'll be forthcoming. The volunteer hub, we'll be socializing that through the fellows and through the partners as an opportunity in the summer program. So stay tuned and reach out and let us know what you think.
Yeah, and we'll definitely try and share information when you get those different sets of applications for partners and for fellows out, if that's helpful. We're happy to spread the word there, because this is something that, again, is really benefiting ourselves and a number of our partners, having this influx of dedicated support to issues that it's almost like we were able to take some projects we thought were really important, but just didn't have quite enough capacity to move as quickly as we'd like. And we know with climate change, there is that sense of urgency. And so having, again, some dedicated support is huge. And I really look forward to hearing maybe from the fellows again. Maybe we'll do a deep dive on your project towards the end of the 7.5 months when you're totally like experts and pros at what you're working on and can share an update on what you've been able to build during that time. We can have a little celebration, maybe bring out some bells or something and celebrate the work that you've done. But thank you for taking the time. And again, those of you who had questions that weren't answered, I will make sure that we include those in future topics. I do see some interest in some other things that weren't relevant to today's. And we look forward to seeing you on March 10th for our next Lunch and Learn session. Thanks so much to the fellows for joining us today. Thanks, Kif.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Kif. Thank you, Rachel.
You guys.
Have a great day.
You too.